Hi guys, my name is Esther Daniel and you're welcome back to the channel. So there is something happening in Florida. Cubans are being deported in large numbers. For decades, Cubans had special immigration privileges in the United States, protections that many other immigrant groups never had. But those protections have been rolled back, and under Trump's immigration policies, Cubans are no longer treated as untouchable. Even though many Cuban voters supported Trump during the last election, they are now finding out that ICE does not take exceptions. Let's get into today's video. Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share the video to help the channel out.
Cubans in Florida are being deported in record numbers. Cubans have had a long-standing special relationship with the United States of America and have had special immigration privileges for decades now. Cubans were among some of the Latino population who supported and voted for Donald Trump at the highest numbers, lest we forget the Donald Trump song that they came up with.
Vote for Donald Trump, I love my freedom. I will vote for Donald Trump.
While Cubans held those privileges for decades, Donald Trump has changed that. According to an article by the New York Times, has repatriated more than 1,600 Cubans in 2025, according to the Cuban government. That is about double the number of Cubans who were repatriated in 2024, and in years that Trump has been president. He has sent more Cubans back than his last three predecessors. Polls, however, suggest that many Cubans who support Trump still do support Trump, but they're confused as to why they thought they would be immune to ICE raids, immune to deportation, and they really thought they were a part of the MAGA family. At the end of the day, this is one big fuck around and found out and I told you so, because you were always Latino in this country. You were never white. You were never MAGA. You were never a part of white supremacy or a part of the white national identity, my love. Now, beloved, look at you. You and Abuelita are getting separated, going to the panaderia to buy Cuban bread. And that's on you. That is not on anyone else, because you voted for this. And this is not me gloating, because no one should be getting separated from their families. No one should be deported. But you guys were one of the main group of people to tell us to shut up, and that you knew what President Trump was going to do for you.
The New York Times yesterday released this article. To their shock, right? Cubans in Florida are being deported in record numbers. Just last year, the Trump administration repatriated, aka deported, more than 1,600 Cubans back to Cuba. Now, for context, that is double the number of Cubans who were deported in 2024, and in the years that Trump has been president, he has sent more Cubans back than his three predecessors. And that's not mentioning all the Cubans that have been deported to Mexico, to places in Africa, to countries all over Latin America and the world because they had some sort of criminal conviction and the Cuban government refused to accept them back into Cuba. Now, what's crazy is that polls suggest that most Cuban American registered voters, who obviously tend to be Republican, continue to support Donald Trump. But there has been a growing amount of unease throughout the community with this situation. Growing unease in the community, but they still continue to support Donald Trump regardless of their family members, their friends, their neighbors being deported back to the Cuban dictatorship, right? Or to random countries across the entire world for convictions that these folks had in the 80s, 90s, 70s, right? And what's funny to me is the headline, right? To their shock, Cubans in Florida are being deported in record numbers, because it's the reality, right? This is a shock to the Cuban community here in South Florida, mostly in Miami-Dade, right? In their minds, This shouldn't be happening because obviously there is a dictatorship on the island. The situation in Cuba is worse than ever with health issues, so many different things, right? Unfortunately. But because the Cuban community has benefited from the Cuban Adjustment Act for decades, which has allowed for them to, after 1 year and 1 month of being in the U.S., be able to obtain permanent residency and then obviously become a U.S. citizen much quicker than any other immigrant group in U.S. history, they have this mentality of, I'm up here, other immigrants are down here. We're Americans, we're citizens, come legally, right? That's been the popular mentality for decades here in South Florida. Meanwhile, for people from my community, Hondurans, other Central Americans, Mexicans, people from South America, other people in the Caribbean, it's not a shock, right? Deportation in the history of Honduran immigration, for example, is something very normal. Hondurans have been getting deported back to Honduras for decades. Nothing new. But again, it's the difference in immigration enforcement that now has all come together. The lines have been blurred because now it's everyone. This administration has come after everyone, regardless of any former privileged status.
Cubans in Florida are shocked that they're being deported by record-breaking numbers. And I gotta tell y'all, I'm shocked that they're shocked. Trump was completely transparent. There was no fine print with this agreement. Two things about that guy. He's going to tell you what he's going to do. And those things that he told you that he was going to do that he can't do is simply because he just don't have the power. And he overestimated himself to carry, to follow through with those things. But fortunately, with the deportation, with deporting people, he can deport undocumented immigrants and he could end TPS status like he did for the Cubans, and he could put travel bans on countries like he did for the Cubans. Those 19 countries that he recently banned, Cuba was part of it. And in 2025, he deported 1,600 Cubans, which was double the amount of the deportations back in 2024, right? They have pictures of the Cubans outside this in this detention center outside of Alligator Alcatraz. They have pictures of them back in June lining up together, spelling out SOS Cuba. SOS Cuba. That's what they're spelling out on their shirts or paint on themselves in these facilities. They have pictures of that. So the Cubans are just shocked because these are record-breaking numbers. Nobody deported these many Cubans in the last 3 administrations. And polls show that 7 out of 10 Cubans support Donald Trump. 7 out of 10 Cubans support Donald Trump. The beautiful thing, one of the most beautifulest things about this beautiful country is that you have freedom of choice. And people should respect that. So yeah, this is still, I don't care what nobody say, this is still a banger on my playlist.
I will vote for Donald Trump. I will vote.
Raise your hands, come on.
For Donald Trump.
Dale cintura, 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 cintura.
I will vote for Donald Trump.
Hi. We've now entered the FAFO phase for Cubans. Yes, you heard me correctly. To an alarming surprise, Cubans in Florida are being deported at record numbers. Yes, Cubans, Republicans who voted for Trump, they came here under Biden, under amnesty. They did it the legal way. They're getting deported. I highly encourage you to check out an article in the New York Times. If you're brown, he's coming for you. It doesn't matter if you're here under amnesty, if you did it the right way. They don't care. So we've now entered this FAFO stage for Cubans. So they're doing it in record numbers in Florida. That's because a lot of them, that's where they live. So if you didn't know, Marco Rubio is Cuban. Yeah, he came here from Cuba. And so they're deporting them right now in record numbers. Remember when he deported Venezuelans and then he attacked Venezuela and captured their president and kidnapped him, and then, said that he cared about Venezuelans? Yeah, he doesn't care about you. So FAFO, Cubans for Trump, especially in Florida. Hi.
This is a Cuban Trump supporter from where else but Florida with a tattoo of Trump's face on his chest, who is now afraid he might get deported because of the recent surge in ICE activity. Watch.
He describes himself as a fan of President Trump, so much so, he showed us how his admiration for the president is skin deep. But his love for the commander-in-chief has turned a bit sour as ICE raids intensify across the country. He, like so many other Cubans, are still in jeopardy of being deported. Estimates are at least 400,000 Cubans who, like Eloski, entered the U.S. through the southern border and were released with what's called an I-220A instead of parole.
I wish we knew the answer to that. It's a problem because the government does not accept that as a legal entry.
So Cubans with I-220As cannot apply to the Cuban Adjustment Act?
That's the government's position.
In the meantime, Cubans like Eloski find themselves in a dangerous legal limbo. He came to the U.S. in 2019 and thought by now Trump would have helped Cubans like him legalize their status.
Why did you think you would be the exception? And what makes it worse is the man you support is the reason the United States won't recognize your release order as valid legal entry, which means you can't adjust status, which means you can't apply under the Cuban Adjustment Act. And you say you still support him. But you know what? I'm done explaining. Just cue the music.
Oh my God, I will vote. I will vote for Donald Trump.
Hey y'all remember this? The I will vote for Donald Trump crowd? Remember them? Do you remember this video coming up right here?
Vote for Trump. Let's go. Vote for Trump. I will vote for Donald Trump.
Well, now look at this. Cubans are being deported from Florida in record numbers under Trump's second term. Even though many of them backed him, we know the Miami Cubans love to think that they are non-minorities. They love to think that they're better than every other Latino group. They love to think that they came here a certain way and F everybody else. And they very much love to vote Republican and love to vote against their interest. But not working out them so well. How many of them are singing I would vote for Donald Trump now? Because as you can see, they're getting deported like crazy. But remember, y'all was out here with this Cubans for Trump. Now, y'all out here like this. And this is why I will say every time, some of y'all minorities who be trying to act like y'all better than everybody else. Meanwhile, half of y'all wouldn't be over here if it wasn't off the backs of black people and enslaved people. But I digress. You want to down every other group of people. A lot of y'all Cubans really can't stand black people. Y'all can't stand against other Latino groups. Y'all really think that y'all are the closest thing to whiteness and that you're going to be accepted and that you're this and that. And as you see, when it comes to Donald Trump, he doesn't care about anything that you have to say. He doesn't care that you voted for him or that your family members voted for him because he gonna round your ass up just like everybody else and show you that you are just like every other minority. He don't give a damn about you. Next time, vote the way that are in your interest, not against your interest.
So why are so many Cubans still supporting Trump when more and more Cubans are getting deported? Okay, that's a question that I hear getting tossed around on here a lot. And let me unpack this for you a little bit. The first waves of Cubans, the OG Cubans who came, they came in the 1960s and they were trying to escape communism, right? Because they felt like their property, their wealth, all that shit was getting taken by the government. The people in Cuba who had property and wealth to be taken were the white presenting Cubans, the ones that looked more like me. They were more white presenting because there was a fuck ton of racism, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There's a fuck ton of racism in Cuba at that time. I mean, there still is. And so they came here and they were like, we can never go back. We've lost everything, all right? And they were perfectly happy and perfectly content until 1980. And in 1980, what happened is that Castro allowed Cubans to leave through the port of Mariel. Right, so there was the Mariel boat lift. So people from Miami were going to go get relatives. Charter boats would go out and pick up Cubans. And one of the things also that Castro did at that time is that he opened up prisons and he opened up mental institutions. And there were a lot of queer people in those spaces because queer people were criminalized in Cuba. They were in jail. If you were queer, if you were trans, you were in jail in Cuba. And so he was releasing all these people. And he was also releasing people with like mental health disorders who were in mental hospitals and things like that, right? And so the Cubans in Miami saw that wave that was coming was also people that were more brown and black. That's where the people that were coming in the Mariel were more brown and black and they were more poor. And those OG Cubans are racist as fuck and they're classist as fuck. Yeah? That's my family. My family were the OG Cubans. And I was raised with this, so I'm telling you from the inside. I'm telling you from the inside. I was raised to look at the people that were coming during the Mariel, who were browner, who were blacker, who were queer. I was taught that they were scum. And the Cubans that were already here wouldn't give them jobs, wouldn't allow them to rent little apartments or spaces or whatever. No. They refused them. They didn't want to absorb them into the culture here. And so where did those people go? Some of them were able to find places to live in historically black neighborhoods in Miami, like Liberty City and Overtown and Alapata, right? Because again, the Cubans were like, dark-skinned Cubans, we don't want them here. Poor Cubans, we don't want them here, right? But other marginalized groups in the United States were okay. We're like, yeah, come. A lot of them also ended up in other states, because the United States was like, well, you can't, there's no jobs for you in Miami, so we're going to send you somewhere else for work. And this fucking like bigotry towards your own people, that continued through the decades. It continued through the balseros that came, the people that came on rafts in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. And so this OG group of Cubans truly believed that they were the best Cubans, because they were the white Cubans, because they were the Cubans with money. They believed that they were the best Cubans, and that they believed that they were the only Cubans who really had a right to be here, because they were going back to Cuba. And all these newer Cubans wanted to go back to Cuba to visit relatives and friends. Like, of course they want to go visit their relatives and friends. Of course they miss them. And if it's possible for them to do that, they would. And then it became possible for them to do that. And so that spurred even more hatred and vitriol to those groups. I was raised to believe these things. I was raised to believe that I was a better Cuban and that all these other Cubans needed to go back. Like, it's so bad that the term Marielito, of the people that came in the 1980s during the Mariel boat lift, Marielito was tossed around as a slur, as a derogatory term. Like when Cubans would see like someone like running a red light or, you know, whatever, or cursing out loud in public, they'd be like, oh, that's a Marielito, right? Like some disgusting rat or something like that. Okay, so those OG Cubans taught their kids and their grandkids and their great-grandkids to think that way. And that's why there are so many Cubans who are perfectly happy watching other Cubans getting deported. Because for decades they have been waiting for this moment. For decades. And I guarantee you that the Cubans who came in the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, even the most recent ones, I guarantee that they don't even really fully realize how much the OG Cubans and their descendants hate them. I don't think they realize it. I think that they believe like, oh, we're all comrades. We vote Republican together. We all have the same value system. And it's like, no, honey. You've been out white supremacistized. You've been out fucking Cubanized by your own community. You've been duped. You've been fucking duped. And they've been waiting for decades to get rid of you. And that's why they're still supporting Trump. They're happy about that. They want Cubans to get deported. They want that. And that's where Marco Rubio comes from, right? He was raised the same way that I was. He was brainwashed into believing that his own people were trash. And that they needed to go. And now he's making that happen. I'm sure his family is super proud.
Anyway, guys, I would like to know what you think about this whole situation. Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share the video to help the channel out. See you in my next video. Bye bye.